Okay, Superman and the art of rejection. So we're going to have a little conversation today about failure as well as rejection. And failure and rejection are kind of twins, maybe fraternal twins or two-egg twins, but twins nonetheless. So the first thing, I have a challenge as well. Who is this? Okay. Lost a job. Defeated for legislature, government. Failed in business. Elected to legislature. Okay. Girlfriend dies. As a result, he had a nervous breakdown. Defeated for speaker, which is a chairman position in a legislature. Defeated for nomination for Congress. Elected to Congress. Before we go on, this is loser. Lost renomination. Rejected for land office. Now, what is a land office? Defeated for Senate. Defeated for nomination for Vice President of the United States. Defeated again for the Senate. Why, you know? And finally, elected President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, who was generally picked out as being the best president of the United States. So Abraham Lincoln was a world champion at failing forward. Okay? Kind of each time he failed, he went for a bigger thing, and bigger and bigger and bigger, until he won. There's a lesson in there as well. But he wasn't the only person that is good at failing. Pepsi, bankruptcy at least 3 times. Okay. Henry Ford 2 or 3 times personally, as well as Ford, the company. Thomas Edison, okay. Who is my namesake, Terrence Edison Brown. Probably the world's best innovator. But when he was creating the light bulb, tried over 1,000 different elements when he was trying to develop what was going to be the filament in the incandescent light bulb. And then Rovio, a company that you probably are familiar with, failed 51 times. They created 51 apps before their 52nd. And their 52nd was Angry Birds. Correct. Okay, so there are thousands and thousands of examples that we can use with respect to failure and rejection. It's important to note that every failure contains a little bit of information. Okay? Every failure contains a little bit of information that you can roll over and use. Now, rejection may or may not contain information, but it's valuable nonetheless, and we'll get to that in a second. So my question for you today is have you failed today? Or have you been rejected today? It's something that you should think about. Have you failed today? And have you been rejected today? And also, how do you feel? Or how did you feel when you failed or when you were rejected? We, more often than not, associate failure and rejection, again, with loser, rather than failure and rejection being associated with winning. But why is that? Why is that? Because, as we will see again, people that are successful, okay, people that are creative, people that are innovative, fail more often than they succeed. So that would tend to point to them being winners as opposed to losers. You need to develop a thick skin. Okay? Failure and rejection hurts. So one strategy, of course, is develop a thick skin. Okay? But developing a thick skin is just a start. Elephants have thick skin, but every little mosquito bite, they feel. So thick skin is not enough. Okay? What you need is to be like Superman. Okay? Impervious to bullets. So impervious to rejection like he is to bullets. A bullet just, bounce off of you. The rejection, the failure, just roll off of you. Okay? And there's a way that you can do it. And I call it desensitization training. Okay? And what in the world is that? Well, very simply is you put yourself in situations where more often than not, you're going to be rejected. You put yourself in situations where more often than not, you're going to fail. Mm-hmm. And what you find are two things. One, rejection doesn't kill you, believe it or not. And two, every rejection gets you closer to your goal. An easy example is after my first year in college, I sold books door to door for a summer. Okay? And I knew that I would sell every 3.5 families that I actually got to talk to. So kind of every failure would get me closer to my goal. The great Zig Ziglar tells us a story about a guy selling books as well. And he sold books, he sold a set of books every 4th time, so about 25% of the time. So the gentleman went to sell books and he failed. The gentleman said, "No, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in buying the books." And the guy said, "Well, thank you very much." He goes, "I said that I wasn't interested in buying the books." "Yeah, I know, I appreciate it. Thank you. He's saying, "What is wrong with you?" I said, "No, I'm not going to buy your books." He goes, I understand that. You see, but Mr. Jones on the corner said no, and Mr. Smith next door said no, and now you've said no. So that means next time I talk to someone, they're going to buy some books. He said, "You're saying that the next person is going to buy books from you?" He said, "That's right, the next person is going to buy books." He goes, "Well, maybe I should take another look as well." And of course, he bought the books as well. I need to give a quick shout out to Nietzsche, of course. He wasn't correct on a lot of things, but perhaps he was correct with this view on rejection and failure. Silicon Valley is always pointed out as a place where they have a culture of failure, and it actually is really true. That failure is seen as a badge of honor. It's kind of learning at the school of hard knocks. Because you're going to fail more often than not, if you don't have experience failing, when you actually do have trouble, you might freak out. So it's much better to have someone who had some experience with failing. The Startup Nation is Israel. It's a book written a couple of years ago, 2009, I believe, talking about Israel, a real culture, country culture, woven into the national culture around failing and rejection. And they point to that as one of the reasons why it's had tremendous success in the area of startups. Okay. So as I move towards the end here, there are a couple of points that I want you to get. And here's that if you're not failing, if you're not being rejected often, okay, you're not having the success that you could have. Okay? You're not having the success perhaps you should have. Okay? You're not being creative enough. You're not being innovative enough. You're not trying new things. You're not stretching. Okay? So this is very important. You should be thinking, am I failing enough? Am I being rejected enough? Have I been rejected? Have you been rejected today? Chris Dixon is an entrepreneur, and he believed in this. And so, almost on a daily basis, or at least when he was feeling full of himself, what he would do is he would try to email or phone Steve Jobs. Now this, of course, was when Steve was alive. It would be a little bit difficult to do today. So he would try to contact Steve Jobs. And of course, he got rejected. And so after he got rejected, he felt better because he got his rejection out, okay, for the day. But remember, each rejection helps you build a hard shell, okay, a hard shell. So what I want you to think about, and as you leave here, tomorrow morning, when you wake up, okay, I want you to forget breakfast, okay, and I want you to start your day with rejection. Okay. So, thank you.